There's an element in human beings that they want to be anonymous, and yet they want to reach out at the same time.
And I've learned things about men that I had no idea about before.
It's something that I can do without feeling guilty.
My observation make me feel almost sorry and scared and concerned about human race.
I was empty before, and now my life is full, and I would like to make it fuller.
First of all, I discovered that my ex-husband was probably the worst lover in the world.
You can't put emphasis on someone's voice that they're going to be that way in person. And the best person to prove that to me was this girl who is the phone whore. She has the sexiest voice in the world, but when I met her, she was like 375 pounds. So, a voice and a person's looks has nothing to do with each other.
The only contact that we're actually having when we're on the phone is what we hear. Everything else is processed, and you visualize it with your imagination. This is a way of dreaming while you're awake.
I think it's an interesting way to meet people. I think the technology exists where if this was a big American city, I would never do this phone telepersonal thing because there'd be too many wackos out there. But because this is Montreal, chances of meeting somebody at least normal and decent are pretty high.
The majority of the people on these systems are I find them very uneducated. I don't really like to use this word because the value of a human being is not his or her level of education, but it is definitely his or her level of depth as a person.
Did she call you back after?
Yes, as I say, we've been in touch over like 3 years now. We've been in touch, or 2 years. Just as friends, we just talk on the phone.
You don't want to see her again?
No, I don't want to see her again.
Is it because you don't want to be seen with her, or because you don't like the way she looks?
I would say both. I don't want to be seen with her. I don't like the way she looks, and I don't really see that she has anything. I mean, I don't base my friendships with people on how they look. So that has nothing to do with it. But I don't see where anything can come of our relationship. She's not really a friend. So that's where that stands.
You said you've been in touch for the past 3 years.
Yeah, when she calls me on the phone and we talk.
But you don't.
And she teases me with her sexy voice.
A lot of the men are into looks. Actually, there's a lot of unspoken things, I think, on the lines. I know I've met a few men that lied to me about their looks or didn't say something in particular that may have been a surprise about their looks, either obese or of an ethnic, perhaps, origin, which I wasn't expecting, which is when you're looking for a certain person, it's a surprise. People shouldn't surprise other people. It's almost like lying, I think, anyway.
And since I'd been leading a rather sheltered life, 25-year marriage, and not communicating with other men, I didn't know what those creatures were. For a long while, they were just voices on the phone. In fact, the first few times that I went to meet people and was stood up, I thought of them as stars, you know. Wow, they're on the line. I'm going to go meet a star.
There was a woman there who just said she wanted someone to read her a bedtime story. So I left her a short message, well, how would you like a bedtime striptease?
There was one fellow I met that wanted to experience everything, anything and everything there was in life. And it was not really that sexual, but okay, when I first met this man, he's a wonderful person. He's very sweet. And all he wanted to do was perform oral sex on me. And he wanted to do it outdoors. So we went out a few times, and then we arranged one night, very late at night, to a local park. Then we went into the park, we stepped off the paths. It was very dark. And he just stripped himself naked and laid down and had me sit on him for a couple of hours.
I like to prolong the whole performance, and I sensed she was getting impatient. And then at one point she said, okay, come on, get undressed. And when I had just my underpants on, she looked at me and said, take them off and sit down here. And she had a chair by the bed. So I sat down there by the chair, and I had told her beforehand that I would caress myself and I would like to masturbate in front of her. And she let me do that. In fact, I had brought some oil with me, and I covered my penis with the oil and brought myself off. And as she was watching me, she was bringing herself to orgasm as well.
You feel like there's more risk involved when it's meeting from the personals, even though that's just a perception. You have just every bit as much risk meeting someone at a nightclub or more, because there's alcohol involved, and the person can be just as strange or just as weird or just as dangerous to you if you're meeting them in a public place, or you run into them in the bank machine, or you meet them on the bus, or you meet them in a store, or you meet them doing an activity. I mean, it doesn't really matter. People are people. There can be strangers lurking out there who go to your church.
I've had a few negative experiences, I guess, meeting people off the line. There was, I guess, two times I've met a person and allowed myself to allow them to perhaps start to pressure me, in which I had to just quickly leave. Actually, one time I actually jumped out of a vehicle at a stop and left, went home.
What was he pressuring you?
He was exposing himself and trying to actually push himself on me as I sat in the seat next to him, actually, and I was negative with that.
When I told them at the time that the thing I missed most was the sound of someone breathing next to me at night, there was one man who let me call him up, and we fell asleep with the phone in our ear, and I listened to him breathe.
I'm very good at, like, whenever a girl calls me back, it's never a problem getting her to meet me. She always wants to meet me. I always draw her out, and she's always intrigued, because I'm not trying to get into a superior attitude thing here, but I think the quality of guy that I am is maybe a step or two higher than the average guy who gets onto this system. And so when I meet a girl on this phone thing, we usually tend to, she wants to meet me. She finds me interesting. I make her laugh or something, and I usually set up the date for the next day. I go, well, you just call me. The way I do it is I just leave my phone number in their voice. I don't have a voice box. I had one briefly, but the way I use the system in general is I'll scan through. Out of 200 ads, maybe I'll choose 3 or 2 or 1, leave a message with my phone number. So I get out of the system right off the bat. She'll call me at my apartment, we talk, then we meet. Then that's the way it works.
The person that doesn't succeed, I gather, is the person that gets really broad general and just says, well, anyone from 25 to 65 will do, any height, any age, any race. I'm not fussy. Well, that's the person that's going to meet all the strangest people and have all the weirdest experiences, and he will be the ones that are complaining and moaning about how it's not possible to meet anybody nice from the personals.
After that fantasy was done, he came to a swinger party with me, and he wanted, I don't know how much of this you can show anywhere. He wanted to experience some fisting and on himself, and he wanted the golden showers done directly into his mouth by men and women. So actually we did do that, and I had another man do that with him, and he enjoyed it a lot, and he received his fisting. He liked it a lot, and then he wanted more and more. And I had to stop talking to him actually a while ago, because I don't know where he would go from there. he wanted to keep experiencing those things and more. There are people out there that are like lost souls, I think. There's probably no real satisfaction in anything after a while.
I don't know if everybody else can relate to that, but I know that it's not a bad experience at all. And I keep recommending it to my lonely single girlfriends. And they don't always take me up on it, but that's their problem.
So what makes you above average?
Well, that's a good question. What makes me above average? Well, I think you have to start with the normal people who are on the system. I think you have a lot of flakes, a lot of fat people, a lot of losers, people who don't have much to say, people who, usually probably spend a lot of time looking at dirty magazines and dirty movies. And so they like to, it's a fantasy thing. They call up and they say, oh, I want to meet the fantasy girl of my dreams. Whereas me, I have something interesting to talk about. I talk about my life, or I make them laugh, or I'm interested in them. And like I said, 99.9%, I'll say, okay, well, let's meet tomorrow. They go, great, I want to meet you. And then we end up meeting. And whether anything comes of that or not, it's usually not.
Just around the corner, there's someone out there who's going to answer my ad or who's going to leave me a message. It's going to happen for me. I just feel that. I know that.
Only comparatively recently, I had a very interesting phone conversation with a 22-year-old woman who wanted to do something for her friend who's getting married in a few weeks' time. And she wanted to know if I would stick a dildo up my ass in front of a crowd of girls. So I said, well, yes, of course I would.
So I became addicted for a while, to the point where I didn't sleep. I was able to realize my dreams while I was awake. My doctor had to give me sleeping pills, and I even fought that effect, and finally was able to sleep a little bit and use the line in the sense that it was made.
So I actually met someone and had a long-term relationship with them through this silly phone personal thing.
I've actually thought of attending church to see if I could meet some other kind of a man that way.
So there's lots of eligible people out there. It's a matter of the two sexes getting together in the right venue and getting to, really breaking down the barriers between why we can't talk to each other in public. It's getting rather ridiculous. It's really hard to talk to a stranger in the city.
Our population, the presently which lives on Earth, at least those whom I know in our Western culture, I think they are so alienated that, did you ever notice that you walk on the street, or you are on a bus, or you are in the metro? Did you ever get a nice, friendly smile? No. And if somebody, a stranger, smiles at you and really smiles at you, the first thought will be, what do you want from me? Because we are all F-U-C-K-E-D.
You pick up the phone, you talk to a stranger, you don't know them, they don't know you. You can be the ugliest person on earth, but for that moment, you are a voice on the phone, you have that person's full attention, and you're someone special. So for people who have low self-esteem or are ashamed of how they look or don't feel that they have the skills to meet people, they can meet them in their little fantasy land on the phone for a short period of time. Whether they get together or whether it works out is secondary. The moment is what's important on the phone telepersonals. The message, the moment, the exchange.
So I guess it's possible to work, but you have to be very lucky and 1 out of 1,000. The rest of the people, it's like, thousands and thousands and thousands of people are buying a lotto ticket, 649. Do they win? No. Maybe once in a while, will get the jackpot. So it's the same thing here. I may respond to advertisers, or some advertiser may respond to my electronic message, but there is no guarantee at all that we will come out as winners. At best, we're gonna have a good time. Thank you for your interest.
We recommend the following safe dating advice. When meeting someone for the first time, select a neutral public place like a coffee shop or well-lit restaurant. Tell someone where you're going and meet in the daytime if possible. We suggest you exchange several messages before meeting with someone. That way you'll have sufficient time to judge the overall character of your date. Please exercise good judgment with your personal information. Don't reveal your home telephone number, address, last name, or details about where you work.